All right, let's dive into this. The Human-Orc Wars, huh? You sent over the Human-Orc Wars, a history from the human perspective, some stuff from Wopedia, and even the Warcraft wiki. Looks like we're going deep on this, especially what life was like for those humans, before the orcs showed up.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to cover a lot of ground here. Peaceful times, then bam, couple chaos. It's a wild ride tracing this whole conflict. But gotta remember, we're seeing this through human eyes. It's just one side of the story.
True, good point. But even just starting with the human side, it's striking. You see these kingdoms, peaceful, prosperous, totally clueless about what's coming. Like, imagine that. Generations knowing nothing in peace, and then suddenly, boom, green-skinned warriors pouring out of in reality.
It wasn't just the surprise, right? I mean, these orcs were brutal. No talking, no taking over, just pure destruction. The sources describe it as pure terror. Humans watching their villages burn, people slaughtered.
It sounds terrifying, honestly. The humans had their knights and soldiers, sure, but how could they be ready for that kind of savagery? And then you add in those whispers of demon blood and warlock magic. Makes them seem even more otherworldly. How do you even fight that?
Well, that's where things get interesting. See, the humans, they might have been outmatched in terms of sheer force, but they had one thing the orcs didn't. Unity. Yeah, they had their squabbles, kingdom against kingdom, but they saw the Horde for what it was a threat to everyone, so they banded together. That's how the Alliance of Loiteron was born.
The Alliance. That feels huge. So what did that unity actually look like? Was it just humans, or were there others?
It was a big deal. Seriously. Unprecedented. 7 human kingdoms, all different, all with their own baggage. They set it all aside. And they weren't alone. Dwarves joined, gnomes, even those high elves, usually keeping to themselves. All those skills, all those resources, dwarven engineering, elven magic, all to fight the orcs.
Wow, a true team effort. Makes you wonder if they would have even won the Second War without that.
Absolutely. And the leadership contrast is stark. The orcs had Blackhand chaos, fury, no real plan. But the humans, even with their infighting, they had guys like Anduin Lothar come forward. He's a symbol of, holding the line, strategizing, inspiring the troops. Really important in those early clashes.
Lothar. Yeah, I can already tell he's going to be a big deal in all this. But even with everyone working together, Stormwind still fell, right? That was a huge loss.
The fall of Stormwind, yeah, that was a turning point. A brutal reality check. Imagine, orcs, shuffle pneumatic blazing, riding those monstrous wolves, just tearing through everything. Total destruction, villages wiped out, Grand Hamlet ashes.
And those dragon riders, it sounds almost apocalyptic.
Oh yeah, the orcs, they had somehow, I don't even know how, they bent those red dragons to their will. Like weapons, just devastating against the humans. Even with Lothar leading the charge, they were just overwhelmed.
It must have felt like the end of the world, honestly. And King Lane, right, assassinated. That had to be a blow, not just strategically, but to everyone's spirit.
Yeah, King Lane's death was a gut punch. What makes it even worse, it was Garona Halforsen who did it. An assassin they thought they could trust. It's a reminder that even when things are darkest, betrayal can be lurking right there, where you least expect it.
That kind of betrayal, it had to have lasting effects. Mistrust within the Alliance towards anyone who even seemed like they might sympathize with the orcs. How do you even come back from something like that?
But that's the thing about the humans in this whole thing. They're resilient. They learn. They adapt. Stormwind falling, yeah, it was awful, but it also showed them what was at stake. They couldn't let the orcs just take over. They had to push back harder. And that's where things get really interesting, because right there in the ashes of Stormwind, the Second War was already brewing.
Man, the fall of Stormwind. You could almost feel that despair, But they didn't just give up. They came back stronger, ready for round 2. And that's where the Second War gets even more intense.
Oh yeah, the Second War, that was a whole new level. The orcs weren't just licking their wounds, they were getting smarter, more organized. Remember Blackhand, kind of a loose cannon. This time they had Orgrim Doomhammer in charge. Totally different.
Doomhammer? The name just says it all, doesn't it? So what made him such a challenge for the humans? What set him apart?
He wasn't just about brute force. Doomhammer, he got strategy, He knew how to unite those orc clans, bring in new allies like trolls and goblins, even figured out how to control those ogres, the horde under him. A totally different beast, more like a well-oiled war machine.
And they didn't waste any time using it. Battles everywhere, right? Hillsbred Foothills, Cosmodon, even the elves in Quathalas got hit. It sounds like the humans were on the back foot constantly.
They were. Doomhammer, he just kept pushing, relentless. But here's the thing. The humans had some tricks up their sleeves, too. Remember all that infighting we talked about? Well, that pretty much went out the window. It's like Doomhammer's aggression. It forced them to finally become a real alliance.
Okay, so the Alliance is actually unified now, at least for the moment. But they're still facing a stronger, smarter horde. What turned the tide? How did they start pushing back?
That's where the paladins come in. Remember all that talk about demon blood and warlock magic with the orcs? Well, humans had their own power of the Holy Light, and they created a new order of warriors to wield it. Paladins.
Paladins. They're almost legendary, even outside Warcraft. What made them such a good counter to the orcs?
It wasn't just faith, it was strategy. These guys, Uther the Lightbringer, all of them, they weren't just holy warriors. They were like beacons of hope. Their presence on the battlefield, it boosted morale, inspired the troops. But the big thing, the Holy Light, direct counter to that fill of magic the orcs were using.
So, more than just symbols, a real tactical advantage. Makes sense. Light versus darkness, classic battle. But even with paladins, they still had setbacks, right? Like, what about that whole Alterac situation?
Ah, Alterac, that's a dark spot, yeah. Lord Perinaldi, he was greedy, ambitious, cut a deal with the Horde behind everyone's backs, opened a mountain pass, let the orcs just bypass the Alliance defenses, surprise attack.
Talk about a stab in the back. So what happened? Any consequences for Perinaldi? Did he get away with it?
No way. The Alliance, even with a war going on, they knew they had to deal with that. Justice, accountability, that still mattered. They took care of Perinaldi's treachery quickly. Made a statement. Betrayal, even against a common enemy, not okay.
Good. At least there was some senses right and wrong, even in all that chaos. But even with that dealt with, the war kept raging. Huge battles, right? Any that really stand out from the sources?
A bunch, yeah, each one important. The Siege of Quel'Thalas, that was rough. Orcs and those forest trolls, they just wrecked the elves. Shows how ruthless the Horde could be. Then there's Hillsbrad Foothills, total brawl, and it really shows off Doomhammer's smarts.
And then, the grand finale, the Battle of Blackrock Mountain. The name alone is epic. What happened there? What made it so important?
Blackrock Mountain, it was like years of fighting, all boiling down to that one moment. Alliance versus Horde, everything on the line. Sources describe it as pure chaos. Paladins fighting warlocks, knights charging into orcs, dragons in the sky. A fight for survival, plain and simple. No one backing down.
And that's where Lothar dies, isn't it? It's a tragic end, but also kind of legendary.
Yeah, it changed everything. Lothar, the Lion of Azeroth, the guy who held everyone together after Stormwind, he falls. And not just anyone, to Orgrim Doomhammer himself. Duel to the death.
Wow, like something out of a storybook. So what happened next? How did the battle end after that?
Lothar's death, it was a blow, no question, but it galvanized the alliance. Corellion, his lieutenant, he picks up Lothar's broken sword. Driven by grief, vengeance, he leads the final charge.
So even in death, Lothar inspires them to victory.
Exactly. Fueled by Lothar, by Corellion, they fight like they've never fought before, push the orcs back all the way through the dark portal, and then they destroy it. No more reinforcements. It's a hard-fought victory for the alliance. The Second War is over.
It's a powerful image, isn't it? That last push, the portal collapsing. But victory came at a cost. So what happens next?
Well, the war's over, yeah, but that doesn't mean everything's settled. That destructible portal, it ushered in a peace, but a fragile one. New problems, new threats are on the horizon. And that's a whole other story.
The dark portal's gone, the Second War's over. Feels like a good ending, but yeah, things are never that simple. So what happened next? Did the humans finally get a break?
Well, peace, yeah. But break might be the wrong word. See, winning brought its own problems. Thousands of orc prisoners, scattered all over their lands. What do you do with them?
Big problem, right? It just beat this terrifying enemy, but now they're still there. What did they even consider doing?
Some people, they wanted to just wipe them out. Too dangerous to keep around. But others wanted to try something else.
I remember reading about King Tyrannus. He seemed to be a big believer in that something else. Like he genuinely thought maybe peace was possible.
Tyrannus, he was a good guy. Wise, diplomatic. He really thought, even after all that, orcs could change. So he went with internment camps. Not an easy call, but he saw it as a chance to, rehabilitate them instead of more fighting.
I get it. But those camps, even with the best intentions, they had to create problems, right? Did they work? Did they actually make the orcs less, orcish?
The idea was to break their warrior culture, teach them a new way of life. But it didn't quite go as planned. Those camps, they became breeding grounds for resentment, bitterness. A lot of humans, they were still scared, still saw orcs as monsters, treated them that way.
So that mistrust, it was still there. Under the surface, even as the humans were rebuilding. And it wasn't just outside threats they had to worry about, was it? Wasn't the alliance itself starting to fall apart?
Exactly. The war had brought them together, but now those old rivalries, those political differences, they all came back. Gronius, they were always kind of on their own, but they went full isolationist. Build a wall, shut everyone out. And other kingdoms, they drifted apart, focused on their own stuff.
Almost makes sense, doesn't it? The big threat's gone, and suddenly you remember why you didn't get along in the first place? It shows you alliances, a lot of times they're about necessity, not friendship. But speaking of threats, the orcs weren't the only ones brewing, right? Wasn't this when the Scourge showed up?
Yeah, the Scourge. That was different. Scary in a whole new way. Forget orcs and warlocks. This was an army of the undead. Like a plague, just sweeping over Lordaeron.
Undead. Straight out of a nightmare. How did the humans even react to that?
At first it was just confusion, disbelief. They just won, right? How could there be another enemy so fast? But the Scourge wasn't like the orcs. They weren't after land or power. They just wanted to destroy, wipe out everything.
And that's where Prince Arthas comes in, the paladin. He starts out a hero and then, well, not so much. What happened there?
Arthas. Yeah, that's a rough one. He was a good kid, skilled paladin, loved his people, wanted to protect them. But the Scourge, it was too much.
I read he became obsessed, like had to stop the plague, no matter what. Was that his downfall?
You could say that. He became so focused on his mission, he made bad choices. Terrible choices. He thought he could get this rune blade, Frostmourne, use it to defeat the Scourge. But that blade, it had a price. It took his soul, twisted him, turned him into exactly what he was fighting against.
Tragic hero, right? Wants to do good, ends up doing the worst possible thing. And his actions. They had some serious consequences, didn't they?
Oh yeah. Arthas, he comes back to Lordaeron, not as a prince, but as a Death Knight, working for the Lich King. The first thing he does, kills his own father, King Tyrannus. And that opened the door for the Scourge to just overrun everything.
Wow. The very heart of human civilization, destroyed from the inside by one of their own. What about the orcs during all of this? Still stuck in those camps, right?
Right. But things are about to change for them. There's this young orc, Thrall. He'd been raised by humans, so he saw all the bad stuff happening in the camps, the way his people were being treated.
Thrall. He's kind of a legend, isn't he? From what I've judged, he wanted to break that cycle of violence, that whole horde way of doing things.
He was a different kind of leader. He knew the orcs needed a new path. No more demons, no more constant war. He wanted peace.
So he gets out of the camps, and then what?
He rallies the orcs, organizes a mass escape. They ditch the Eastern Kingdoms, set sail for Kalimdor, brand new continent. It was a huge risk, a leap of faith.
And the humans? Still dealing with a Scourge, right? Where did they go?
The Scourge had messed Lordaeron up bad. But humans, they're tough. Jaina Proudmoore, she was a powerful mage, and she had a good head on her shoulders. She got as many survivors as she could, and they sailed west, too. Kalimdor.
So both sides end up on this new continent. Fresh start, maybe? Or did they just start fighting again?
It's not that simple. See, Kalimdor is a whole different world. Ancient forests, powerful spirits, and the Night Elves. They'd been there for ages, protecting their home. Humans and orcs, they both had to adapt. Figure out this new land, make alliances with the locals, and most importantly, deal with a common enemy, the Burning Legion.
The Burning Legion? Weren't they the demons who'd corrupted the orcs in the first place?
Yeah, the Legion was a whole other level of bad. Immense power, and they wanted to destroy everything. Coming back to Azeroth, that was a threat to everyone, humans and orcs included.
Wow. So their biggest enemy becomes their, well, not friend exactly, but at least someone they have to work with. Enemy of my enemy, right? Did it actually work, this whole team up?
It did. And it was epic. Humans, orcs, night elves, they all came together at the Battle of Mount Hyjal. It was a close one, a real clash of the titans. But they won. Pushed back the Burning Legion, saved Azeroth.
That's amazing. All those sides fighting together, you'd think that would have changed everything, like a new beginning, everyone getting along.
Could have been. But some things are hard to forget. There were still those who held on to the past, the hatred, on both sides. Didn't want peace, no matter what.
So they kept fighting, even after all that.
Not all-out war, but skirmishes, betrayals. There were good moments, yeah, cooperation. But also terrible things. Theramore, a human city, destroyed by the Horde. Tildrassil, the Night Elf home, burned by Sylvanas Windrunner. Every bad act just fueled the cycle, made real peace feel impossible.
It's kind of heartbreaking, you know, all that pain, all that revenge, and they can't seem to escape it. But there were still people who wanted peace, right? Who believed things could be different.
That's what makes the whole thing so interesting. It's about war, yeah, but it's also about that hope, that belief that things can get better. Like Jaina Proudmoore, she never stopped trying to talk, to understand. And Thrall, he was always pushing the Horde towards a more honorable path.
It's good to remember that even when things are dark, that hope's still there. So yeah, this has been a lot. Peaceful kingdoms, brutal wars, betrayals, unexpected team-ups, the Human-Orc Wars, or something else.
Definitely not a simple good versus evil story, more like a tapestry. All those reasons for fighting, those desires, trying to survive, trying to win, maybe even trying to find some kind of peace.
Thanks for taking us through all this. I'm still processing everything, and for everyone listening, hopefully this gave you something to think about. The Human-Orc Wars, they show us history isn't always clear-cut. Sometimes your worst enemy becomes your ally. And even in the darkest times, there's always that flicker of hope. A CAE 10.